It's been just over 2 weeks since the men's gold medal game was played between the US and Canada, and it's safe to say that Canadian pride was on full display. In many ways, it might have just been a preview of something even bigger when Canada opens their campaign at the 2026 FIFA World Cup on June 12th at BMO Field. Who other to bring on and talk about the gold medal game than one of the most recognizable voices in Canadian sports broadcasting, the man who's in Milan himself, James Duthie. Hey, James, how's it going?
Matthew, how you doing?
Pretty good. So let's get straight into it. We were in Milan just about 2 weeks ago, and that gold medal game had a lot at stake. The U.S. obviously heading into that game hadn't won a gold since 1980. And on the other hand, they've been winning gold like crazy, but there wasn't really that competitiveness at the Olympics because no NHL players were there since 2014. What was the feel going into that game, considering the fact that Canada was trying to win another gold?
Well, it was crazy being there. I'm sure it felt the same as it felt around the country. Personally, when I'm doing the job broadcasting, I'm impartial, but I had a lot of anxiety, as I'm sure every Canadian did, just because it felt so big because we'd waited so long for a game like this. And I can't imagine what the McDavids and McKinnons and everybody else were feeling. So it's funny. I think I said this on air in 2010, being there in Vancouver when Crosby scored the goal. I said to myself, I don't think it'll ever feel this big again, because when else are you going to get a Olympics at home in your home country and an ending like that? And this was pretty darn close to it. It just felt like the buildup, the hockey was so great. The buildup was so big. The rivalry with the States has only gotten bigger. So that was pretty intense.
Could you feel the whole country behind you?
Well, I mean, they weren't behind me, but I could feel them
Well,
behind. I could feel them behind Team Canada for sure. It was, yeah, it was. You definitely could feel it. You can tell by the amount of text messages you're getting, and right, like people you haven't heard from for years, that it felt like everybody was watching and everybody was into it. And those are the great moments. You don't take them for granted because they don't happen that often, right? I mean, the Four Nations final was something, but this was a completely different level. And in sport, it's, maybe once every few years you get a moment like that where it feels like the entire country's kind of into it.
Well, we mentioned anxiety, and I agree. It was pretty anxious to watch, especially after that McCarty goal, because literally it was next goal wins. And for myself, I wasn't watching on TV like most. For some context here, my niece does too. So we're on over to Kingston, and I'm out there on my phone watching that, gold medal game. And when McCall scored that goal, my AirPods in, so it was quiet. And I was screaming when her aunt was driving and she jumped and wasn't know what's happening. Eventually, we got the game going, but it was anxious. And, as the full period came to an end, it was kind of like, okay, what's going to happen next? And like you said, there was lots of anxiety. Take us inside that stretch between that third period and overtime, because I think everyone needed a smoke. Like, oh, did how many packs of cigarettes do we have heading into that overtime?
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking this to myself when we were doing, some people, you might get nervous broadcasting when you're broadcasting in front of millions of people. But for me, when we were on during the intermissions or the pregame or whatever, that was the only time I could relax, because you're just doing your job, right? So you're focused on doing your job and trying to ask the right questions and say some relevant things, hopefully. But when the game was on, I was extremely anxious. I don't get that way very often when I watch sports. If I'm watching a Stanley Cup final or whatever, I don't really care usually. A Super Bowl, a Grey Cup, but I'm Canadian, and I felt the way I wanted for all Canadians, for them to win. I wanted for my kids to see Canada win, and so I was very anxious. I can remember I have headphones in that you wear on the air. It's so loud in the arena, and I wanted to hear Chris Cuthbert and Mike Johnson doing the call, and so I kind of like covered my ears, because I was so nervous. I wanted to just keep the arena noise out of it. So I was just kind of sitting there like this. I must have looked like an idiot actually watching the game. But yeah, it was crazy. And especially when it got to 3-on-3 overtime, when you knew it was going to be an absolute crapshoot, right? 3-on-3 always is. And one lost puck or one mistake ends up costing you. In which case, I think Canada made probably 4 mistakes on that goal, which is nuts. But you had the three best players in the world probably on the ice. So I don't know what you can do. Stuff just happens, and it's a tough loss for all Canadians. But I think you could easily say to yourself, they could have lost in the quarters, they could have lost in the semis. Those were really close games. So I think we were treated just some fantastic hockey, and maybe it was just the Americans' time.
So I mentioned 3-on-3 overtime. What did you see unfold in that Jack Hughes goal? Paint the picture for us. What did you feel like in the moment? What did you guys go through? Just overall, the overall feel.
Well, I was right behind that net. By the way, I was almost in the exact same position I was in when Crosby scored the goal in 2010. I was behind the net where the goal was scored, about 10 rows up, where our set was. And I knew, it's funny, McKinnon was coming back, and I thought he had a decent chance to get the puck away from Zach Werenski. But you could feel the 3-on-1, right? And you just could feel trouble brewing the whole time, that there was going to end up being a really good chance here. Bennington had made some great saves in the tournament on breakaways, on point blank chances like that. But yeah, I don't know, man. As soon as the puck went in, there was just like this gross deflation.
I mean, I can't say on here what I saw, but I'll just
Yeah,
say
I know what
it's not,
everybody said. I think I just kind of put my head down for a second, and I was like, all right, now I got to think about what I'm going to say. That's the one curse of the job, is that you don't have much, whether Canada had scored or the States had scored, didn't matter. I would have been thinking about it for 10 seconds and then have to think about, what are you going to say? How are you going to put this in perspective? What does it mean? That's what you end up spending most of your time in the business doing. So basically, I just turned around, I think, and started figuring out when we were going to come on and what we were going to talk about.
Did the energy around that gold medal game maybe give you a glimpse of what the country might look like when the World Cup comes?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hockey's different. It's a little different. I was talking to somebody the other day. The World Cup is strange because, you're starting a tournament where Canada's probably not going to win, right? Like, it's not like anybody expects Canada to win the World Cup. That would be the craziest thing ever. So you know that it's not like being, winning a gold medal and being on top of the world. The victories for Canada in the World Cup would be, if they can make it to the round of 16 or something, right? That would be kind of, but I think the feeling of the nation, getting together around their televisions, their bars, whatever, just to watch Canada compete will be the same. And I can't wait for it. It's almost anticipate this more because we've never seen it before, right? We'll never have another World Cup probably in our lifetime in Canada. Maybe it's not the traditional, like hockey is, passion of the country, but I mean, I think we saw it a little bit in Qatar and Copa America. Canada will get behind this team. I think it's going to be really cool.
42 teams have already qualified for this World Cup with 6 spots still left for grabs. When you were there in Washington, what moment stood out for you the most? I really said, wow, the World Cup is really coming to Canada.
That's a good one. I think when first, it was just, the whole thing was cool. There was a day before the World Cup where Atiba Hutchinson, who works for us, the former Canadian captain, I went to see him at his hotel, and the hotel is where all the players were staying, all the World Cup legends. And so this lobby bar had like all these guys that were, the history of the World Cup, some of the greatest players from all these countries. So that was really cool in the first place. But I think when Canada finally got its group, I think that's when it kind of got real, when you saw Canada's name up there, and Switzerland being filled in, and Qatar and the other thing. I think that's
possibly Italy.
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't the greatest end of the draw. The one thing I would say, I'm really torn on that first game, because Italy against Canada would be a really amazing scene for the first World Cup game in Canada. But I also don't love the idea of, if it's 75% Italian flags in there, that's kind of a bad look for the first game on Canadian soil. I have nothing against proud Italian Canadians, of which there are many, but I thought it would be cooler if it was, just a sea of red and white Canada in there, which would, you need Wales or one of those teams to win for that to happen.
Well, if Italy doesn't make it, how do you assess Canada's chances?
I think they're decent. I don't think this is the Italy of old. Italy will obviously be favored, but I think Canada has a good chance at a draw in that game. Like like a 0-0 draw or something. And
You don't see any goals?
if they could get a draw out of there, well, I think Canada might have some trouble scoring. That might be an issue right now. Uh, if Canada could get
Oh,
out with a draw, and then then they got Qatar next, which they should win, and then they have a chance to win the group against Switzerland. I think that would be a dream scenario. So I don't think it's Canada's going to get overwhelmed by Italy if they play Italy in that game. I think they have a decent chance.
how many confidence did you have with that draw? Because it was a long draw.
It was long, man. FIFA does some weird ass stuff. Like I don't know, they do some weird things. Yeah, it wasn't my favorite TV. I look at it from a TV show perspective sometimes and go, what are they thinking here? But hey, they're FIFA. They can do whatever they want, I guess. Our set was just outside the theater, and so I never went in. I decided just to watch it on TV. We had a bunch of guests coming afterwards, Canadian players. Jesse Marsh was coming to us as soon as it was over. So I just stayed on that set and watched it from there. I did go check out the red carpet a little bit when we were on TV to see some of the stars coming by, but mostly just stayed on the set and watched it like everybody else at home.
Well, it was definitely amazing. I feel like I don't know, like when I was in high school, so this was what 2018, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they announced that Canada will be hosting it. I'm not gonna lie, I was so crying. Like as a football fanatic since I was a kid, the fact that we're going to be able to potentially even see Ronaldo if Portugal finish second and they'll come to be more full is just remarkable. What do you think about the games? People like to criticize Vino for and the renovations that they're doing, the improvements. They can argue that maybe the lack of talent is not coming, but I beg to differ. You got full-time world champions Germany, potentially full-time world champions Italy coming. You got a good team out Ghana. You got Luka Modric and Croatia coming. How do you assess the whole group?
Yeah. I mean, I get where people were a little bit disappointed because the possibility of Argentina or Brazil or somebody come in and group play would have been really cool. But I'm with you. It's the World Cup, right? It's all going to be great. There's some, like you say, if it's Canada and Italy, it's unbelievable. I think there's chance in the next round of Argentina maybe or Portugal.
Portugal would have to finish second in their group to play in Toronto. Right?
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's going to be great no matter what.
England
I don't know.
A possibility.
I don't know, Matthew. I mean, football fans know for sure. I don't know that Canada in general really knows what's coming at them here with the World Cup, like the insanity that a World Cup brings. I was the one I hosted in 4 years ago in Qatar was a different World Cup because everybody was in the same city, which will probably never happen again. Like very unique circumstances. You can't basically hold a World Cup in one city unless you have a very rich country that'll build 6 stadiums right there.
Yeah.
But it's so cool to watch. In Qatar, they had this little downtown area where everybody came, right? So every day it was like, Brazilian fans and Canadian fans and American fans and just, from every country there, Argentinian fans. And I think downtown Toronto, downtown Vancouver are going to be insane during those periods where Canada has the games. So, yeah, I'm not sure the countries come to grip with how big an event. I mean, this is the biggest sporting event in the world. It's bigger than the Olympics, and it's going to be nuts.
I mean, you mentioned how big it is. I got blessed to go to Germany 2 years ago, I should say, when the Euros were happening, and the vibes were just, you can't compare them to what we have here in Canada and the US. It's just incomparable. And they have the Super Bowl that happens every year, and Americans tend to come out and say, "Oh, it's the biggest sporting tournament or sporting event of the year. Everyone watches it." And in reality, like Johnny Fatino says, Super Bowl, what was it? I think 135 million that tuned in. He's saying that's approximately what every single group game is going to have at the World Cup. So we're going to do something different right now, and it's kind of a tribute to you. You also have the Quizmaster on at TSN that puts everyone to the test, especially O-Dogs. His long-lost cousin, the Test Master, got in touch with me, and he wants to challenge you with some questions. Are you up for it?
All right. I'm game, baby.
So stay no reply. Which host nation goes the furthest at the World Cup? Will it be Mexico, the United States, or Canada?
Well, I'm going to go Canada. So I don't know if you know this, but if Canada comes third in its group, which is probably the most likely scenario, right? If I was to take off my patriotic hat, I think they have a decent chance of finishing second. They have an outside chance of winning it. But realistically, like if it's Italy, their best chances, they probably beat Qatar and end up third in the group. if Canada comes third in the group and America, the States takes care of business, I think there's a 99% chance that Canada plays the States in the next round in San Francisco on, I believe, July 1st. And I think Canada would have a really good chance to beat the States. Now, this is all obviously we have a lot of injuries right now, and guys got to get healthy. So I'm gonna assume the Moise Bambitos and the Alistair Johnstons and Fonzie and all those guys are healthy enough to go. Promise David, I don't think has no time to get healthy. If Canada's healthy, I think they have a really good chance to beat the States. Mexico, I just gonna say Canada. I think Canada's gonna get to pull off an upset and get to I don't know. I don't know if they'll pull off two upsets, but I think they'll beat the States in what would be the group of 32, and at least get to the round of 16. Mexico would be a little bit of a wild card there, but they haven't looked great the last couple of years. I'll take Canada. What the hell?
If Canada does finish first in the group, they do play that next game in Vancouver, the round of 32 match. So that's also worth noting.
Yeah.
You're mentioning over they play the US, you're not sure how far they're going to go. What are the chances that Canada reaches the round of 16? 4%, 25%, 50%, 75%, or 100%? Very optimistic 100% in that case.
16, I will say, okay, I'll say 50%. I was going to say 25, but I'll give them 50. Like I said, going on my premise of, okay, if they finish first in the group, they should get there because should play one of the weaker third place teams, I think, right? They finish second in the group, they'll play either a third place team or another second, I think, right? One or the other. Depends on exactly where they finished exactly. And if they finish third, like I said, good chance they'll play the Americans. So 50%, baby.
FIFA has confirmed 3-minute hydration goals that each have during games at the World Cup. Your reaction, yay or nay?
Nay, but it's easy for me to say I'm not running my ass off in Canadian humidity or American humidity. Canada probably won't be too bad, but if you're playing in Houston or something like that, it's 120 degrees then, or in Mexico. I guess I get it. I'm more a fan of them toughing it out. Like I said, easy for me to say.
2026 World Cup will feature a record 48 teams. The biggest impact here will be A, the chaos in the group stage, B, the Cinderella stories to come, C, lower quality of football, or D, stadium attendance.
That's awesome. That's a good question. I'll go with the Cinderella story. I mean, it is lower quality football. I'm glad because I think it's going to ensure that Canada is going to be in the World Cup a lot over the next, whatever it is, 12, 16, 20 years. But I did prefer the 32. I just think that's I don't know. To me, that was real football. Stadium attendance is going to be interesting with the whole political situation going on. I don't think it'll be a massive story though. I think it'll probably be filled up. There's going to be some team from the bottom half, somebody that's ranked, over 40th in the world that pulls something off. I think almost certainly some top 12 team will get knocked off by a team ranked 47th in the world. And that's always the funnest stories for me.
Which team is most likely to be the one that everyone picked them, but they're disappointing? A, Brazil, B, England, C, France, or D, Germany?
That's good. To be the biggest disappointment?
Yep.
Yeah. Put me on the spot, Matthew. Well, I mean, England does it almost every time. You know what? I'm gonna go Brazil. I have no, by the way, I don't pretend to be Kevin Kilban or Stephen Caldwell. I haven't poured over all the rosters. I mean, obviously I know the stars for every team, but as far as depth wise and everything, I'm not sure. So that's just a random selection that it'll be Brazil.
I'm not sure how this go on to here, but Taylor Swift's best single is A, Anti-Hero, B, Cruel Summer, C, Style, or D, The Full of Fuel.
Cruel Summer. I'm like everybody else, kind of fell in love with it in the middle of that tour. And, the bridge is what made that entire tour.
On the last one, the 2026 FIFA World Cup champion will be A, Lionel Messi of Argentina, B, Kylian Mbappe's France, C, Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal, or D, other.
I don't think Argentina's going to win again. I don't think I think Spain's going to win. So that wasn't one of the things. So I'll say other.
Nope. Spain.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, see his hat trick the other weekend?
Hmm?
Did you see the hat trick the other weekend?
I did.
He's a star, yeah?
He's unbelievable. Yeah,
we're less than 3 months away from the FIFA World Cup. And Duthie, thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Matthew, thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.